is that he's going and he's washing the feet of all 12 disciples. And what's crazy is as he goes through each disciple, this one's feet were dirty, now it's clean. This one, dirty, clean, dirty, clean. But then the towel that Jesus had is getting exponentially dirtier as he goes down, and he has to find another clean spot in that towel, because as he cleans the feet and washes the feet of all 12 disciples, when he goes down the line, the towel becomes increasingly dirty, almost as a symbolic picture of him accumulating the sin of the world on the cross. Every sin you would have ever committed. And you know what Jesus was saying? He was saying, George, I'm not offended by the filth in your life. I'm not offended by this dirt. I'm not offended by this thing. And I'm gonna get down and wash your feet. And so if we learn about being unoffendable, we become like Jesus when we say, I'm not offended by the sin that you've accumulated in your life, because he was not offended by the sin that I accumulate in my life. And how hypocritical would it have been for the disciples to point at each other's dirt? So the question is, either are we all accusing or are we all being washed? And when Jesus is in the house, everybody gets washed. And sometimes the biggest evidence that Jesus is not in our midst is that everybody gets accused. But when Jesus is in the midst, everybody gets washed. And so guess what? When I was in Ukraine with Billy Nolan all those years ago, and he's passed, and Billy's hour is over, and Billy is now in another world. Florian just lost his mom, and we're praying for Florian as a church. And the funeral's this week. And I pray that many of you can go to that funeral if you're in proximity here in New York City, because Florian's mom lived in New York City, but she's in another world. I remember the last time I was in her apartment in Alphabet City in Manhattan, and she was like, you know, we were trying to talk to each other, and Florian's interpreting, and all of a sudden I just, you know, hey, let me pray for you right now. And I prayed for his mother, and tears came down her eyes, and I said, Florian, your mother loves the Lord. And that's what I kept saying. She loves Jesus. And he's saying it to her mom, and the more I say it, the more she's weeping. But her time is up here in this earth, and now she's passed to another world. Why is this important? Because in that room in Ukraine with these pastors viciously fighting each other and having these arguments, it wasn't about who was right, it was about who's righteous. And what we need is not more dialogue on the internet. What we need is more foot washing. We don't need to talk it out, we need to wash it out. Do you hear what I'm saying? This is the wisdom, this is the heart of the Father. And this is who we are at V1 Church. We're a church that washes each other's feet. I feel the anointing on this right now. Judas was about to betray him, but he washed his feet. He knew he was being solicited by the devil, but it didn't change the way he served him. What if you stop changing the way you treat people, knowing how they're getting ready to treat you? That's the proof that you're unoffendable, is even knowing that Judas was going to betray him, even knowing the devil was working on Judas, Jesus said, I'm still going to wash your feet. I mean, Peter was getting ready to deny him. And Peter's the one talking the talk of humility, but Jesus is looking into his future saying, y'all, Peter, you are so unable to save yourself, you don't even realize you're days away from denying me, talking about wash my head and wash my hands. But he didn't look at Peter and say that. He got down and he washed Peter's feet. And matter of fact, what he did say to Peter is, you don't understand now, but you will. Because there was going to come a day when Peter was going to be the apostle, and Peter was going to have to wash feet, and Peter was going to have to lead. And I can't help but to think how many times, Julie, when Peter was encountering all the backstabbing and the knifing of ministry, that he remembered Jesus washing his feet in light of him denying him. Let that settle. Let that settle. Oh, I get it now, Jesus. You said I wouldn't understand, but I would later. And I get it now because these people are treating me like how I treated you. Well, I guess I have to treat them how you treated me. Oh, I see water. Isn't that funny that when Jesus died on the cross, part of the final process is they put a spear in his side and blood and water came out? It was almost like a reminder, I'm still washing. See, the blood cleansed your entire body, but your feet are gonna need to be washed every day. See, this is not a salvation issue, it's a renewal issue. Oh yeah, the blood washed you, but the water needs to cleanse your feet every single day. Why? Because you're not scrolling. Let me put it like this. You know, like I'm strolling through the street, but you're digitally scrolling through the streets of the world, and you're picking up offenses from other Christians and picking up. And so what's happening is your digital feet are dirty because you've walked down avenues and you've had conversations. Some of you go to work and they're the way they talk, the way they act, and you just come home with dirty feet. And this is what everybody stand to your feet because I want to end like this. There was tension in the air. Judas, I know what you're gonna do, but I know how I'm gonna still treat you in the midst of it. Man, Peter, I know what you're gonna do, but I know how I'm gonna treat you in the midst of it. This is a word for somebody. Jesus washed all of the disciples' feet. Whether he was betrayed, whether he was denied, or whether he was abandoned, it didn't change his love. Let me say it again for all of you who've been through trauma. Whether he was betrayed, whether he was denied, or whether he was abandoned, it didn't change his love. We let trauma change our love. Divorced people say, I'll never get married again. Well, why? What changed your love? Let the love of the Father repair your love, and maybe you will be married again. We let people, I've been hurt by this person, that person. I'll never go to church again. Well, who changed your love? See, Jesus was abandoned, Jesus was denied, and Jesus was totally rejected, but it never changed his love. Don't let it change your love. And if it's the love of the Father through you, it'll be unchanging. It'll be tested, it'll be tried, but it'll be unchanging. Feet represent stability. Feet represent direction. Feet represent the path of righteousness. In Psalm chapter 119, 105, your word is a lamp unto my feet, a light unto my path. So when he washes your feet, Jesus is saying, I want to put you right back on the right path. Some of you are on the wrong path. You know it, you feel it. And you know how you know you're on the wrong path is when their rejection and their abandonment and their denial actually changes who you are. When you start acting like somebody you don't want to act like, when you start talking like somebody you don't want to talk like, it's the evidence that your feet are dirty, they're on the wrong path, and Jesus wants to wash your feet and put them on the right path.